mean, x-rays and everything will show that, you know, that I didn't hurt him. You know, I tried to take care of him, and I wouldn't hurt a fly.
A medical emergency didn't stop investigators from questioning a woman about a dead body found in her storage unit. But she's got a lot more secrets she's keeping from investigators, which seemed to make her the prime suspect.
Who helped you get him over there?
I did it by myself. Wasn't easy.
This is Inside the Crime, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Elizabeth Milner. Hey, by the way, there's a reason Law and Crime is the go-to spot for true crime content. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest personal injury law firm. They have more than 1,000 attorneys and have recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. In the past few months alone, a client in Florida received $12 million when insurance offered just $350,000. And in Pennsylvania, another client was awarded $26 million. 40 times the insurer's offer. Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to fight for what you deserve, you can start a claim from your phone. So if you're injured, you can start a claim at forthepeople.com/insidethecrime, click the link below, or scan the QR code on your screen. Investigators say the woman hid her boyfriend's body in a storage unit to the point his remains went through extreme decomposition. But an autopsy revealed more, like that he had been poisoned for a long period of time before his death. Marcy Oglesby and Richard Young had been in a relationship for more than 2 decades, but the two never exchanged IDs. Richard, or Rick as he was known, was the former police chief of the Mequon Police Department in Mequon, Illinois. Everyone seemed to love Rick, except maybe his own girlfriend Marcy, because you don't poison someone you truly love, right? That came to light after the discovery of Rick's body. On October 7th of 2022, the Knox County Sheriff's Office were called to a storage unit in Mequon. Deputies were called after the owner of the storage facility smelled a foul odor coming from one of the units. That specific unit was Unit 29, which was owned by Marcy. Marcy's home was right across the street from the storage facility. So when deputies asked her about the smell, she initially said it was a dead animal. They brought her over to the storage unit, where there was a box inside. Inside the box were Richard's remains. After the discovery, Marcy complained of chest pains, which is why when the investigators questioned her, she was in a hospital bed.
So you know why we're here.
Yes, I did.
So I'm going to let you tell me what happened.
Rick got COVID. He was very sick for quite a while. He can be a very, he can be a very difficult person to try to deal with. I mean, nice person, but just stubborn when it came to health or anything else.
Okay.
So, we'd had kind of we've been together for 24 years. And, I just basically was a bit of a bully, and I'd let him, let him bully me, because I'm a doormat.
How so?
Like, I paid all the bills. I mean, the man wouldn't go buy himself shoes or jeans or anything else. I took care of everything while he hoarded money.
Okay.
And, like if we were low on groceries or something, or, I couldn't afford to pay a bill, I mean, I was working 10, 12 hours a day.
Where'd you work at?
I worked for Northwestern Medicine, Health Lab, LabCorp before that. But I mean, I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, go take a shower, go get ready for work, go to work, and come home, and he would have sat there all day long after he retired, He would have just sat there all day long and watched porn or did whatever, and if I said, hey, I need some help with the bills this time or whatever, he might eventually give it to me, but he would complain the whole time, and, well, what are you doing with your money? I'm supporting the whole household. So, you know, our relationship was always, if I didn't go along with things the way he wanted, he'd make my life miserable. But I loved him, so I put up with it. When he got COVID, I couldn't get him to go to the doctor. I couldn't get him to agree to, you know, he was like, just give me some medicine, it's a virus, it'll work, it'll write itself out. He was so sick, he was throwing up. For 2 weeks, he couldn't hold anything down, even water. And I would beg him, let me take you to the doctor, you know, and, you know, or stay in bed, you know, and I did the best I could to take care of him. But he was taking so much medicine and stuff, like, he was constipated. So I literally, you know, because I mean, I've worked in medicine for 20-some years. You know, I worked in ICU, CCU, you know, I knew what I was doing. You know, I wasn't recklessly, you know, just saying, let me take care of you, you know. When he wouldn't go to the doctor, I was like, okay. So, I mean, at one point in time, I literally he had an infection. You know, he couldn't poop. And finally I sat down and I said, so I said, do you realize I love you? And I'm being tough here, telling you need to go to the hospital and you need to have proper care, you know, because of that. He'd wait till I fell asleep, just completely exhausted from taking care of him. And instead of, like, you know, I put a little bell in there, I gave him options to wake me up, he'd get up on his own and fall, you know. So I was like, why are you doing this? I'm here to help you. Well, I'm putting too much stress on you, you know, you don't feel good, you know, I need to take care of this myself. So then it got to the point where it was almost like, I don't even know how to explain it. I mean, it was like he was deliberately making it harder for me to take care of him.
Marcy claimed Rick passed away after he got really sick from COVID, even confessing she's the one who moved his body.
After a couple days of me getting my head out of my butt and realizing I needed to just report, you know, I should have just called when it happened and done the normal thing that any normal human being would do. And then at that point I was like, okay, well, I didn't do the right thing. And I got scared and it just kept compounding and compounding until I was like, okay, so what do I do? You know, I didn't report this. It's, you know, that's a criminal act. And, you know, all I could think about was the mummy thing, you know, outside of Knoxville. And everything, and it's like, but it wasn't like a religious thing, or, you know, it was me just being depressed and devastated and sitting there thinking that I promised him that, and I knew his oldest child was never going to cooperate with that, and I mean,
Which child's the oldest?
Rusty, Richard. I mean, the letter that he let his girlfriend at the time write to his dad was so insulting and degrading. He's like his mother. He'll do anything for money, you know. And he wants the world to believe that he is the almighty warrior, you know, runs around with this big Marine Corps emblem on the back of his truck, but he broke his own knee so he didn't have to deploy. You know, I'm like, you know, I'm all in favor of, you know, people being honored for their service, but, you know, you went out and broke your own knee on a jump just so that you didn't have to go to Iraq. So, and I just made a really stupid decision, and then didn't know how to, you know, I was like, okay, so do I go in and say I made a stupid mistake? And, you know, but I mean, x-rays and everything will show that, you know, that I didn't hurt him. You know, I tried to take care of him, and I wouldn't hurt a fly. You know, I would never kill someone. I was so devastated. I just didn't quite know. It was like I wasn't in my right mind. His neck did something unnatural. And I mean, it was like that, honestly. It was like that. And I screamed, and I, you know, I mean, like you would normally, you know, I took his face, and, you know, I was like, honey, honey, honey. And he was just gone. It happened like that. I've never seen anything, in all my years of medicine, I've never seen anything like that. You know, there was always some, I've seen heart attacks, I've seen strokes, I've never seen anything like that. And
How long did you keep him in the camper, or was he in the RV that night?
just like 24 hours till I figured out how to move him.
And he's been in that storage unit ever since. Who helped you get him over there?
I did it by myself. Wasn't easy. I literally, it was like early in the morning, and I kind of wiggled the box, wiggled the box, wiggled the box, from there over to the storage unit. I did it all by myself.
I don't believe that.
I would take polygraphs and swear to you on everything that's sacred to me. I literally took and kind of got it down, you know, got the box down the steps, and like, I don't know how to demonstrate. You know, if you're just kind of scooching up, you know, something heavy, you know, in a box a little bit at a time, that's literally how I did it. I just used my foot and my arms and just kind of took it and took it across a little bit at a time.
So here's the issue with Marcy's story. Toxicology reports revealed a little more. Rick had elevated levels of the active ingredient in eye drops in his system. Officials say Marcy had been putting eye drops in his food and drinks between June of 2021 and October of 2021. Then he died, and she placed his body in the storage unit sometime between October of that year and December of that year. Because remember, his body wasn't discovered until October 7th of 2022.
How many people knew that Rick was over there?
In the storage shed? Me. That was it. Just me.
Did your mom know?
I think she suspected there was something wrong.
If we talk to your mom, what do you think she's going to tell us?
That she thought that I was, you know, hiding something, but she just thought he was in Iowa.
Do you think she would know any details of how he died?
No. I mean, she knew he was falling all the time. I mean, you know, he was doing that in front of her. She, you know, she knew that he, you know, had fallen, and knew that there were, you know, she also knew that he was not cooperating with the program, you know. she'd even sit there and tell him, why don't you just stay in the chair, stay in bed, or use the walker. I mean, I had a walker, you know, trying to help, but I didn't have any intention of hurting anybody, and definitely not, you know, my elderly stepmom or, you know, my family. I didn't have any intention of hurting him. You know, I mean, ultimately, his family has not gotten to grieve, you know, because of the choice that I made, but I never meant to hurt anybody, and that's why I did this on my own. This was my choice and mine alone.
Okay.
Nobody else knew. Nobody else knew.
Are you still doing the art dealer thing?
Trying to.
How's that going?
Not very well.
Is that out of Nigeria?
Well, the business itself is out of here, but I have 23 different artists from the African and Caribbean diaspora
Okay.
that all contribute.
Was there one from Nigeria?
Yeah.
Are you particularly close with him?
Yeah, he's my best friend.
Is there any kind of a romantic relationship there?
There has been.
So did Rick know about that?
Yeah.
Did he have a problem with you being still friends with him and working with him?
No. Well, he said he didn't. I mean, he would make comments here and there, you know, that were jealous sounding and, you know, and everything. But he also knew how much money I had invested into doing all of the art, and the only way I was ever going to see that back is to sell it. So that's why he kind of accepted that, and that's what caused the whole problem to begin with, when I was in jail before.
Marcy claimed that there was someone else in the picture, a crush of hers, if you will, but still claims she never hurt Rick.
I've never met the man face to face. There's never been any, you know, it's not like it was anything but talk, you know, texting, stuff like that. I have never physically been with him.
Did you consider him like a boyfriend, though, as far as the way your relationship?
More like a fantasy, more like something that filled in the blanks.
Right. Okay.
I knew there was not going to, I mean, we're 6,224 miles apart.
Right.
You know, I was with someone who was 22 years older than me and not the most affectionate human being in the world. I had a midlife crisis and took some solace and comfort in, you know, someone sitting there talking to me. There was no physicality, no anything like that. And Rick knew that. But he was still, at that point, very burned up with, you know, like I said, the man sat there and told me, if you would have said, you know, I've fallen in love with somebody, you know, we're too far apart, blah, 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 I could accept that. But, you know.
So when Rick got COVID, did he get diagnosed with COVID, or did he just refuse to go to the doctor at all?
He just refused to go to the doctor. We did a home test. Well, what started the whole thing is because he had a serious sweet tooth. And I was sitting in the bedroom painting, and he came in and we were talking about, you know, the painting I was doing. And I would keep this little thing of Heath bars, little miniature Heath bars, on my desk. And he grabbed one and he was like, when did they start making mint flavored Heath bars? They didn't, you know. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, no, they're mint flavored, try one. So I tried it. It wasn't mint flavored. I said, no. So then he's like, okay, well, he said, they're good that way. Just didn't think anything of it. Well, then he came in and said his coffee tasted like mint. And he said, and everything's got a little metallic wang to it. And I said, oh, I said, that's the kind of stuff that happened when I had COVID. I said, maybe we better, better test you. And we did, and it came out positive. And, I called a friend of mine who's a doctor, and I said, so what's the recommended thing now?
Did he give you some medicine to give Rick?
No, because at the time he wasn't, at that point in time, it was just like he had, a little off taste and a little runny nose, and he felt perfectly fine. And he said, no, he's like, no, just let him write it out. He said, there's really nothing that, that we recommend. He said, as long as he's not burning up with fever or, any of those things. He said, if he gets a fever, give him Tylenol, but if it becomes significant, if it becomes respiratory, then that's when you need to get him, whether he wants to go or not, you need to get him into the doctor. It never did. It never, like he had a little cough for a couple days, but his all stayed in his throat, sinuses, and ears. So he, when I would sit there and be like, are you coughing? Are you feeling anything in your chest? He'd be like, no, it's just this damn stuff in my ears and being dizzy all of the time. He said, that's, and he said, and that just needs to pass. He's like, I'm not, dying of coughing or, I don't need a vent or any of that stuff. So that's why he just didn't want to. He hated being in the hospital. He'd been...
So it wasn't like super serious, just more of a head cold?
Well, he was dizzy all the time. Oh no, the throwing up was very serious.
Right.
But and that's when I kept telling him, you need to, but as long as he could, at least once a day keep down a milkshake and, things like that.
You had said he was on a lot of medications. So what medications was he on?
Just like Tylenol and, we got him some anti-nausea stuff and like some diphenhydramine for the spinning, nothing major, just trying to alleviate the dizziness and the nausea.
Over-the-counter stuff, or was it?
Yeah.
So initially, Marcy wasn't charged with murder, just concealment of a body.
When you find out that somebody has been shoved in a storage unit.
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
And this is where we're telling you if what you're telling us is true, fine. So be it. But we're going to figure out one way or the other.
Right, and that's why I said I would prefer to just sit down and bring everything to the table. All his documents, my documents, everything.
Those charges were upgraded in February of 2023. She was charged with first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, aggravated battery by administering a dangerous substance, and concealment of a homicide death. In 2025, the case finally went to trial, and Marcy was found guilty. Come sentencing, though, she still maintained her innocence. According to KWQC, she said in court, "My allocution today will have to take a slightly different path because I respectfully disagree with the court's findings, and I will not be referencing a murder that did not happen. He didn't go into that box immediately. I put him back to bed and continued to talk to him for 3 days." Even though she claims he wasn't murdered, she was still sentenced to 50 years in prison, with credit for more than 320 days of time served. Online records show Marcy Oglesby is serving her sentence in the Logan Correctional Center in Illinois. Her projected release date isn't until 2077, but there's a hearing for a motion on a new trial scheduled for November 6. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Inside the Crime. I'm Elizabeth Milner.